We're fortunate these days to have the translation of the Bible, a number of different translations that scholars have used. We don't understand Hebrew or the other languages, but they have been translated by scholars, and some of the words have hints and ideas that refer to other things that we don't fully understand. But the translations that we have reveal to us the character and love of God for humanity. They show us the situations where man has distrusted God, not believed God, doubted God, and God's wonderful desire to bring people back to himself again. And we can be thankful that these various translations that we can read give us an understanding of God's mind and heart towards us. I'd like to recap a bit about what happened last week. This fellow Jacob, he steals the eldest brother's blessing by followed his mother's instructions. Need to be careful what we instruct our children, and we need to be independent ourselves to choose what we obey and what we don't obey. The mother hears that the eldest son wants to kill Jacob, so she sends him to her brother's family, his uncle, till things cool down a bit. Her son was away for 20 years. That's quite a while for a child to be away from their mother. Well, I think this was a man. All right. God works the circumstances out as he usually does. And Jacob comes to a well. He's left and he's coming up to this place where his uncle lived. And it just so happens that he came up to this well. And it was just the particular time when Rachel was coming down to the well to water her sheep. And so he comes to the uncle's well, the well to feed the family's sheep. Then he explains who he is to Rachel, and as soon as she finds out, she runs to tell her father. All right, verse 13. As soon as Laban heard the news about Jacob, his sister's son, he ran to meet him and embraced him and kissed him and brought him to his house. Jacob told Laban all that had happened. Laban said to him, "Surely you are my bone and my flesh." Got similar DNA through genetics. And he stayed with him for a month. All right, now looking at this, Jacob did not sit around sipping cups of coffee. He was up and working. Laban observed this. This is a useful man. I could use him, and that's so often what the world does. It uses people. So Laban said to Jacob, "Because you are my relative, should you serve me for nothing? Tell me, what shall your wages be?" Bosses don't usually ask the employee what wages they would like, because I think the employee would like to go up a bit. They normally sort of give what they think they can tempt them with, so they'll keep coming back to work. All right, so he asked him what his wages would be. Bit of background from the Bible. Now Laban had 2 daughters. The name of the older was Leah, and the name of the younger was Rachel. Leah's eyes were weak. Another translation said that they are a bit like cows' eyes. I don't know if they were slightly bulgy or dreamy or what. But anyhow, she had difficulty with vision, I wonder, something like that. But Rachel was beautiful in form and appearance, very well formed, lovely complexion, nice movement as she moved around, attractive voice, very distracting for a mortal man. When I was 17, I left Southampton, England, and came down to Wellington, New Zealand, 2 days under 6 weeks. On that ship, there was this young lady. She was quite stunning. Poor girl, the guys were round her like bees round a honey pot. I had to go past the cabin of her family to get to my cabin. And as I went past, the words, the rage, the attitude from the heart of this girl, it taught me quite a lot in half a second, I think. Beauty is not necessarily the most important in life. A godly, honourable, respectful, gentle character is 1,000 times more valuable than great beauty or handsomeness. And yes, this poor girl, I was sorry for her in a way. I have come across people in life who have had wonderful family background, all the benefits of life that you could expect, that they're grumpy, cross, selfish and greedy. Yet I've come across people who have got disabilities, the rough end of the stick, as they say. They've got a brilliant sense of humour. They're lovely people to be with. It's the character of our heart and life, not our assets or our situation. Verse 18, Jacob loved Rachel and he said, I will serve you 7 years for your younger daughter Rachel. He said, the younger daughter, Rachel, that was sort of the agreement. Laban said, is it better that I give her to you? Isn't it better that I give her to you than that I should give her to any other man? Stay with me. Wow, Laban had exactly what he wanted. Guaranteed, industrious worker for 7 years, what more could you want? So Jacob served 7 years for Rachel, and they seemed to him but a few days because of the love he had for her. 7 years, my. I know a certain young man, and he was anticipating 6 months' engagement. But there was a conference then, and there were exams then, and something else then, and it came down to 2.5 months. Wow! There was no complaints about that by this certain young man. And, yeah, but anyhow, it seemed like the time just flew because of his love. So after 7 years, Jacob said to Laban, give me my wife, for my time is completed. So Laban gathered together all the people of the place and made a feast, like a wedding banquet. But in the evening, he took his daughter Leah and brought to Jacob, and he went into her. Laban also gave his female servant Zilpah to his daughter Leah to be her servant. In the morning, behold, for Jacob, it was Leah. And Jacob said to Laban, what have you done? What is this that you have done to me? Did I not serve you for Rachel? Why have you deceived me? So often in life, the deceivers get deceived, the stealers get stolen from, all sorts of things come back on people. Well, this had happened in this situation. I don't think the couple could have done much talking during the night, because I think I'd recognise another person's voice instead of the young woman that I was anticipating. But then, I've had one of my daughters phone me, and I thought it was another daughter. I don't know if it's genetic vocal cords or what, but maybe their voices were similar and he didn't notice. I don't know if his eyesight was bad either, but anyhow, maybe the candles and the lights around the place were so faint and dim, and he got such an imagination of this beautiful Rachel that he thought the person that was there was Rachel, and so he enjoyed the night. All right. He must have been overcome with imagination of his visions of Rachel. All right. Laban said, it is not so done in our country to give the younger before the firstborn. Complete the week with this one, and we will give you the other also for another 7 years. 14 years of good work. Wow, what more could he want? So Jacob stole the firstborn blessing, and he was deceived and given the firstborn daughter. So he has a honeymoon for 7 days, and you get that one out of the tent, and you get the next one in for another 7 days. This is not according to my culture, and I have difficulty coping with this. But anyhow, yeah. All right. Families can have traits through generations. I've heard it said, your grandfather was unemployed, I'm unemployed, you'll be unemployed, your children will be unemployed. Some families have things, curses go down, or situations from generation to generation. If you have something like that is causing stress for you, please get the elders together, get prayer, and get things sorted out for your blessing and your future generations. Be nice if there were some more young families here, all right, that could take the wisdom of that. Then Laban gave him, all right, so Jacob did so and completed the week with Leah. Then Laban gave him his daughter Rachel to be his wife. Laban gave his female servant Bilhah, to his daughter Rachel to be her servant. So Jacob went into Rachel also, and he loved Rachel more than Leah, and served Laban for another 7 years. When the Lord saw that Leah was despised, he opened her womb, but Rachel was barren. And Leah conceived and bore a son, and she called his name Reuben, for she said, the Lord has looked upon my affliction, for now my husband will love me. This dear lady was unloved, and she was endeavouring to have children so that her husband would love her. I find that sad for that dear lady, through no fault of her own, sold like a business something to get labour, service, to look after the flocks and everything. Leah thought she could win her husband's love by having children. So sad. Love cannot be purchased or earned. It needs to be spontaneous. All people need to know that they are accepted and loved and valued. She conceived again and bore a son and said, because the Lord has heard that I am despised, he has given me this son also. And she called his name Simeon. And with this son also she hoped to earn her husband's love. Once again she conceived and bore a son and said, now this time my husband will be attached. I think she's given up on the love situation. And now she just wants to be attached, feel belonging to her husband. Because I have borne him 3 sons, therefore she named him Levi. Yes, giving up on love. And wanted to be attached. She conceived again. She's quite a machine. And bore a son. And this time she praised the Lord. She did the most important. She wanted love. She wanted to be attached. She still was disappointed in life. And she praised the Lord through all of the circumstances. And sometimes in our lives, things don't work out as our plan. It's good to have a plan in life, to have direction, but sometimes things come in and upset the plan. So it needs to be a little bit flexible. And this dear lady, she ends up not going for the love of her husband, not being attached. She praised the Lord. And that is a way, though the fig tree doesn't blossom and there's no fruit on the vine, yet will I rejoice in the Lord. Therefore she called him Judah. Then she ceased bearing. She gives up on being loved, attached. She just praises the Lord. Sometimes life situations or people can let us down, but we can cling to praising the Lord. The Lord knows our situation. Genesis 30 verse 1. When Rachel saw that she bore Jacob no children, she envied her sister. Tall poppy. We are guided to be glad and rejoice when somebody else is successful in life, if they have gifts and blessings. With success, even if things are not working out for us ourselves as they should or we would have liked them to, we are encouraged to support, encourage and help others be more successful, not try and drag others down to get on top of the heap, as it were. Rachel said to Jacob, "Give me children or I'll die." She was desperate. I suggest Jacob had tried to give her children. Jacob's anger was kindled against Rachel, and he said, "Am I in the place of God, who has withheld you and shut the fruit of the womb?" Then she said, "Here is my servant Bilhah. Go into her so that she may give birth on my behalf, that even I may have children through her." This sounds like surrogacy today. There's many couples in life these days who would love to have children, and sadly there's people who don't want their children. It's a pity these people can't be met up somehow. There are awkward situations in life that do develop sometimes. It does appear from the evidence that his systems were functioning. Jacob had produced quite a few children. I don't think it was anything dysfunctional with him. Frustrated people can become irrational and unreasonable sometimes. Sometimes if people like that are around us, we need to be gentle, supportive, encouraging, helpful to bless the people around us. So she gave him her servant Bilhah as a wife, and Jacob went into her. And Bilhah conceived and bore Jacob a son. He bore Jacob the son, not Rachel, but I think Rachel helped look after this child. Then Rachel said, "God has judged me and has also heard my voice and given me a son." Therefore she called his name Dan. Rachel's servant Bilhah conceived again and bore Jacob a second son. Says Leah had son, and her servants had sons. Then Rachel said, "With mighty wrestlings have I wrestled with my sister and have prevailed." So she called his name Naphtali. What sad family dynamics. How supportive of one another these ladies could have been. Jealousy can be so cruel. When Leah saw that she had ceased bearing children, she took her servant Zilpah and gave her to Jacob as well. So these various women, and giving their servants to Jacob. Then Leah's servant Zilpah bore Jacob a son, so she called his name Gad. And she also bore Jacob a second son. And Leah said, "Happy am I, for women have called me happy." So she called his name Asher. In the days of the wheat harvest, Reuben went and found mandrakes in the field and brought them to his mother Leah. Then Rachel said to Leah, "Please give me some of your son's mandrakes." But Leah said to her, "Is it a small matter that you have taken away my husband? Would you take away my son's mandrakes also?" Rachel said, "All right then, Jacob may lie with you tonight in exchange for your son's mandrakes." Purchase, bargaining sex. In my culture, I have a bit of difficulty with that, but anyway, I find this a bit dodgy. When Jacob came from the field in the evening, Leah went out to meet him. She sounds quite keen on this, and said, "You must come in to me, for I have hired you with my son's mandrakes." So he lay with her that night. And God listened to Leah, and she conceived and bore Jacob a fifth son. And Leah conceived again and bore Jacob a sixth son. Jacob had 6 sons. This rejected Leah produced half of the leaders of the tribes of Israel. Quite interesting. And the servants each produced 2. All right. Then Leah said, God has endowed me with good endowment. Now my husband will honour me. So sad that there wasn't love there because of the trickery right back at the beginning. Because I have borne him 6 sons. So she called his name Zebulun. Afterwards she bore a daughter and called her name Dinah. And Dinah, it would appear, was Jacob's only daughter. Then God remembered Rachel, and God listened to her and opened her womb. She conceived and bore a son and said, God has taken away my reproach. It is said that in those days, if a married lady didn't have children, they were treated with a certain amount of contempt. And what's the matter with you? And this sort of situation. No situation through any circumstances should cause anybody to despise another person. And she called his name Joseph, saying, may the Lord add to me another son. One wasn't enough. She wanted more. Okay, she had visions for the future. In the Bible, many of the children born to older senior ladies, God specially used them for special works. Joseph saved the nation of Egypt from starvation, as well as the nations around Egypt, as well as the nation of Israel. There was also John the Baptist born to seniors. God uses children of the seniors for special callings sometimes. There was Simeon. He was given John the Baptist. As soon as Rachel had borne Joseph, Jacob said to Laban, send me away that I might go to my own home and country. Give me my wives and my children for whom I have served you, that I may go, for you know the service that I have given you. He had been industrious, working hard for 14 years. Laban does not know when to release a conscientious worker and tries to entrap him again. And he's got all this wealth built up with his flocks, his camels and animals and everything. Yet Laban, he says, if I have found favour in your sight, I have learned by divination that the Lord has blessed me because of you. I think anybody observing would have seen that. Divination, soothsaying, Ouija boards, secret clubs are condemned by the Lord. Sometimes they can upset all the family, they can upset generations. I encourage you, don't have anything to do with such matters. Get out of them and get help with deliverance, because there can be great power and influence in such things, but the Lord our God is more powerful. Laban says, name your wages and I will give it you. He was determined to keep him, almost trapped. If released, Laban would have kept his stocks and his animals, and he would have had his blessing through the labour of Jacob. All right, Jacob realises in an awkward situation, so Jacob says to him, you yourself know how I have served you and how your livestock has fared with me. For you had little before I came, and it has increased abundantly. And the Lord has blessed you wherever I have turned. But now, when shall I provide for my own household also? There's been various people where the Lord has blessed others because there's been a godly person in the situation and given positions of power, such as Joseph was later. Whatsoever, there's a verse that says, whatsoever your hand finds to do, do it with all your might, with enthusiasm. Another verse says, do all things joyfully, as though you were doing it for the Lord. And I add, because you are. All right. Whatever your calling, even if it is you have an obnoxious boss or difficult situation, do it joyfully. Those two verses have kept me in employment in certain situations because of obnoxious bosses. I don't mind difficult jobs, but obnoxious bosses, those in authority. But sometimes you have to believe you are in a situation for the benefit of others. And other people around you observe your character and stickability and perseverance and consider matters. Laban said, "What shall I give you?" Jacob said, "You shall not give me anything except you will do this for me. I will again pasture your flock and keep them. Let me pass through all the flock today, remove from it every speckled and spotted sheep and every black lamb, and the spotted and speckled among the goats, and they shall be my wages." And he was going to do that for another 6 years. Laban said, "Good, let it be as you have said." But it appears that Laban got there first, and he removed the male goats that were striped and speckled, and all the female goats that were speckled and spotted, and every lamb that was black, and put them in charge of his sons. And he set a distance of 3 days' journey between himself and Jacob pastured the rest of Laban's flock. So Laban removed the suitable breeding animals and left Jacob with the ones that were unlikely to produce his wages, these speckled ones. Yet Jacob somehow developed a breeding program that was very successful. So the feebler would become Laban's and the stronger would be Jacob's. Thus, Jacob increased greatly and had a large flocks, female and male servants, camels and donkeys. Genesis chapter 13, verse 1. Now Jacob heard that the sons of Laban were saying, "Jacob has taken all that was our father's, and from what was our father's he has gained all his wealth." And Jacob saw that Laban did not regard him with favour as before. Then the Lord said to Jacob, "Return to the land of your fathers and your relatives, and I will be with you." What more could anybody want or need? There's no need to be afraid. There's no need to be scared. There's a verse that says, "If I go up into the heavens, you are there. If I go down to the depths of the ocean, you are there. Where can I hide from your spirit?" Not that I think that the psalmist really wanted to get away. In these days, there weren't many aircraft around, let alone spaceships. There weren't many submarines, but God did prepare a great fish for a certain man named Jonah. And the fish came and chunders up Jonah on the beach, and I think Jonah was a bit bleached from coming out inside of that great fish. And the people of Nineveh listened to him, and they took notice. All right. What else could you need than the Lord being with you? You are Christ's ambassadors. You represent your king and government. We have ambassadors in New Zealand from various nations around the world. If our government or Prime Minister wants to speak to another government, he calls the ambassador that comes up, tells him exactly what he thinks, and then he has to go away, maybe ashamed or pleased, and report back to his government, "I've been told this is what they think of you and us." You are ambassadors of Christ. You represent your king down here. It was sad that one of the prophets had to say, speak in the mouth of God's thoughts, "Many of the Gentiles curse me because of the way you carry on." That was speaking to Israel. May that never be thought of us regarding us. May we never do things that cause other people, if they know that we belong to the Lord, to despise our God and Saviour because of the way and the actions and thoughts and values of ourselves. I am aware that the Lord does bless businesses that Christians work at, and sometimes the Christian leaves and it's not the same. The environment deteriorates and all sorts of things like that. So Jacob sent and called Rachel and Leah into the field where his flock was. I don't think he wanted other people's ears to hear. And he said to them, I see that your father does not regard me with favour as he did before. But the God of my father has been with me, and you know that I have served your father with all my strength. Yet your father has cheated me and changed my wages 10 times. But God has not permitted him to harm me. If he said the spotted shall be your wages, then all the flocks were spotted. And if he said the striped shall be your wages, then all the flock was striped. Thus God has taken away the livestock of your father and given them to me. Then the angel of God said to me in a dream, Jacob. And I said, Here I am. The Lord said, Now arise, go out from this place and return to the land of your relatives. Then Rachel and Leah answered and said to him, Is there any portion or inheritance left here for us of our father's house? Are we not regarded by him as foreigners, like a purchased slave that you can sell? For he has sold us, and he has indeed devoured our wealth. All the wealth that God has taken away from our father belongs to us and our children. Now then, whatever God has said to you, do. Has God said anything to you? Do. Get on with it. Don't hold back. And I speak to my own heart that we've failed to sometimes do what we believe before God we should do. Take courage, get up, do it. Hear and obey. So Jacob rose and set his sons and his wives on camels. He drove away all his property to go to the land of Canaan to his father Isaac. Laban had gone to shear his sheep. Rachel stole her father's household gods. Was she trying to save him from worshipping dumb idols? Don't know. Did she despise her father? I think she could well have. I am aware of missionaries who have come home having purchased carvings at a market. They put them up on the wall in their house. They had many health problems and skin problems. They asked for the elders to come round and try and help sort things out and pray for them. They might know deliverance. One of the elders sensed that they felt uncomfortable there. He said, Can we just walk around for a while, please? And he came along and saw these things on the wall. He inquires, what's this? Well, there's some of the carvings we bought from the market. Can I suggest you get rid of them? All right. So they took them out. They had a time of prayer and burning of these idols, and the people's health returned, their skin problems cleared up, and they became a blessing to the church fellowship and to many others. Be careful of what has influences over you and what you have in your home and what you regularly see each time. Have you got hindrances in your home? Call the elders. Get things prayed for and sorted out. Then Jacob said to Laban, Then Jacob tricked Laban by not telling him that he intended to flee. He fled with all that he had and arose and crossed the Euphrates and set his face to the hill country of Gilead. When it was told Laban on the third day that Jacob had fled, he took his kinsman with him and pursued Jacob for 7 days. Laban had got flocks, he got the goats, he got camels, he got children, he got servants, wives, all sorts. It took 7 days to catch up with this lot. I don't know what was tied to the horse's feet or anything of Laban chasing after him. 7 days, and he'd been ahead for 3 days. Something must have held him up, because I feel he's pretty slow. But God came to Laban in a dream by night and said to him, Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad. They came to meet, and Laban said to Jacob, What have you done? that you have tricked me and driven away my daughters like captives of the sword. Exaggerated, false things that he said. His daughters were happy to get away from the situation. Why did you flee secretly and trick me, and you did not tell me, so that I might send you away with mirth and song, tambourines and stringed instruments, a party for you leaving? Yeah, right. Jacob once bitten, twice shy. Laban would have tried to prevent him from leaving again. Sometimes you just have to get out when the opportunity arises. And I've had to do that. And why did you not permit me to kiss my sons and daughters farewell? Now you have done foolishly. Hypocrite. Daughters knew what their father was like. Children usually know what their parents are like. So they know how to get what from which parent and how to run things to get what they want. Sometimes we think we bring up our children, but I think children can sometimes bring us up and develop our characters. Laban said, "It is in my power to harm you, but the God of your father spoke to me last night, saying, 'Be careful not to say anything to Jacob, either good or bad.'" My. After 20 years' service, he would dare to do Jacob harm. I have difficulty comprehending that. What sort of character and priorities and values has that man got? How much respect did he have for Jacob? Jacob just used and abused. It is best to leave such caustic situations. And now you have gone away because you longed greatly for your father's house. But why did you steal my gods? He didn't know that the gods had been stolen, and Jacob answered and said to Laban, "Because I was afraid, for I thought that you would take your daughters from me by force." He knew Laban's attitude and character. Probably he would have. He knew Laban's ways. Yet Jehovah had promised to be with Jacob. Why be afraid? Why should you be afraid? Anyone with whom you find, Jacob says, anyone with whom you find your gods shall not live. In the presence of our kinsmen, point out what I have that is yours and take it. Jacob didn't know one of his wives had stolen these goods. It was his favourite wife. And he was implying that she could be killed because he didn't know what was in the sack. The same thing happened in the future when Jacob was like an emperor in Egypt. Joseph's brothers came down to Egypt to get grain to stop their family starving to death. And Joseph put the money that his family had bought in the top of the youngest son, Joseph's brother, in the neck of his sack. They had gone back, and Joseph sends some men afterwards to say, "You've stolen the money." And the brothers say, "We haven't stolen the money. Whoever's got the money can come back." And it was in Joseph's brother's sack. And the poor brothers, be careful what you commit your mouth to and say that you're going to do. Sometimes things can end up a bit awkward. Be aware of any contracts or agreements that you get into. Be very careful what you commit yourself or resources to. Somebody had stolen the dumb idols. Be careful what you promise. So Laban went to Jacob's tent and Leah's tent. So Jacob went through all the various tents, and then he comes to Rachel's tent. And she had taken the household gods and put them in the camels' saddles. He must have had bags around the side to carry stuff in, and she sat on them. Laban went all around the tent but did not find these gods. And Rachel said to her father, "Let not my lord be angry that I cannot rise before you, for the way of women is upon me." She was having her period, so she said. So he searched but did not find the household gods. Then Jacob became angry and berated Laban And Laban had berated Jacob. Jacob said to Laban, "What is my offence? What is my sin? That you have hotly pursued me? For you have felt through all my goods. What have you found of all your household goods? Set it here, that my kinsman and your kinsman, that they may decide between us. These 20 years have I been with you. Your ewes and your female goats have not miscarried, and I have not eaten the rams of your flocks. What was torn by wild beasts I did not bring to you. I bore the loss of it myself. From my hand you required it, whether stolen by day or stolen by night. There I was by day, the heat consumed me during the heat of the day, mighty hot over in those countries, and the cold by night, and my sleep fled from my eyes. These 20 years I have been in your house, and served you 14 years for your 2 daughters. And he didn't, I should only have served 7 because the other one was suffering. And 6 years for your flocks. And you have changed my wages 10 times. Jacob gave Laban a taste of his own medicine. A bit of a rant, I suggest. If the God of my father, the God of Abraham and of Isaac, had not been by my side, surely now you have sent me away empty-handed. God saw. God sees your situation. God saw my affliction and the labour of my hands and rebuked you last night. Then Laban answered and said to Jacob, the daughters are my daughters, and the children are my children, and the flocks are my flocks, and all that you see is mine. All mine, all mine. Sounds a bit like Gollum to me, but anyhow. But what can I do this day for these my daughters and for their children whom they have borne? They weren't his anymore. Sold, gone, like a business transaction, agreement. Be careful what you make agreements to. So Laban was saying, come now, let us make a covenant, you and I, and let it be witness between you and me. Laban saw the facts, given the evidence, and started to soft talk now. So Jacob took a stone and set it up as a pillar. And Jacob said to his kinsmen, gather stones. And they gathered stones and made a heap. And they ate there by the heap. Then Jacob offered a sacrifice on the hill country and called his relatives to eat bread and spent the night in the hill country. Early in the morning, Laban rose and kissed his grandchildren and his daughters and blessed them. Then Laban departed and returned home. I think Laban could have been a bit subdued. The blessing that could have been him if he had released Jacob 6 years earlier, he would have had all his flocks that had been built up. He was too greedy with his business attitude of mind. What can we learn from these? God is with you through all of life's circumstances. Pain, slander, misunderstanding, false representation. Jehovah is with you wherever you go. Honour him and live honourably. Do not let anyone or anything put you off fulfilling what the Lord has laid upon your heart. I'm aware of a couple who wanted to go to visit some missionaries and see if they could fit in with missionary work. The father said, if you go away, I'm going to cut you out of the inheritance of my farm. The dear couple didn't go. It would have been better if they had have gone, because this father was a pain for the rest of their lives, just about controlling and manipulating, and they weren't able to do a great deal. And I think if they had have gone, he wouldn't have cut them out anyway, and they'd have come back and continued, unless the Lord had held them out there. And the father should have kept running the farm to build it up for when they did come in the future to meet their family needs. Never try to control or take over in another person's life. They're not accountable to you. but to the Lord, even if it appears wrong what they're doing. Remember the prodigal son. His heart was in another place. His father released him to let him go. He trusted him to God. He came to his senses in a distant place and came back to his father, and they were in great harmony, bond, family together. The other son, who had stayed at home and been faithful and all and done it all, despised his father, had contempt for his brother, who was in a closer relationship with their father. God wants you in a close relationship with him. All right. Don't cheat, or you're likely to be cheated. What you sow in life, you will tend to reap. Live honourably, and things will work out for you. The Lord knows our personalities and what is best for each of us. Each of us must run the particular race that God has prepared for you. Please trust, obey, and rest in him, and do your distance. Complete the race. My race is a different race to the race that each of you have to run. God is with you. He sets the race, and he will bless you. The Lord used these people in spite of their situations. I find these people's situations quite strange. I lived in Papua New Guinea for nearly 2.5 years. Meant their marriage situations were very, very dodgy. But anyhow, we won't go there. Make sure all of life's circumstances draw you closer to the Lord and never away from the Lord, so you never turn the back on him. Jesus was teaching a group of people, and some of them left him. He turned to his disciples and asked, "Will you also leave?" They replied, "To whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life." What is better? Wandering off on your own, with not knowing the future, after you decease from the face of this earth, or trusting in the Lord, so that you know that either when the Lord comes to take his living church up and the deceased from the generations before us up to be with him, you are with the Lord forever. As high as the heavens are above the earth, so are God's thoughts and God's ways above ours. I understand they've sent some sort of a rocket up there, and it's gone to other galaxies, and they've discovered far more than what they've discovered until now. The heavens are massive, beyond their imagination and comprehension. And God loves us in perspective greater than that. Love cannot be purchased or earned. It has to be spontaneous by choice. God tells you that he loves you and has shown it by his actions, but he will not force you. It is your choice to choose to love him or reject him. Delight yourself in the Lord. Prepare yourself for your eternal life without end. So if we delight in the Lord now, we'll be delighting with him forever. If people are so tied up with things around them and don't give the Lord a thought, how are they going to fit into heaven? They'll have to change their personality and character if they thought they could get into heaven. We need to love the Lord wholeheartedly in this life. May the Lord bless these thoughts to our hearts and lives. When you leave, go in peace and with the power for good in the world, because it needs you. Amen.